On September 4th, a meeting of the coalition countries supporting Ukraine was held in Paris. The session took place at the Élysée Palace. There, Donald Trump had a conversation with Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenskyy and representatives of the coalition of willing countries. As the president of Ukraine stated, they discussed in detail the readiness of each of the coalition countries willing to contribute to security on land, at sea, in the air, and in cyberspace.
They coordinated their positions and discussed the components of security guarantees.
According to Reuters, citing a White House representative, Trump called on European leaders to stop buying Russian oil. Also, on September 4th, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy met with Donald Trump's special representative, Steve Witkoff. The details of the meeting are not being disclosed at this time. During the meeting, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer addressed the coalition of the willing, stating that they had given Ukraine unbreakable promises. Starmer warned that Russian dictator Vladimir Putin cannot be trusted and that the Kremlin leader is deliberately stalling peace talks in order to strike at Ukraine. This was further underscored by last week's attacks in Kyiv, which caused significant damage to the buildings of the British Council and the EU delegation. This was stated by a spokesperson for the British government. The head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, said that in Paris they discussed security guarantees for Ukraine, strengthening sanctions, and the return of prisoners.
The main task is the practical implementation of the agreements reached by the leaders of the states regarding security guarantees for Ukraine. They must be strong and effective in the air, at sea, and on land. After the meeting of the coalition of the Resolute, French President Emmanuel Macron stated, 26 countries, including the United States, are ready to send either their military personnel or other forms of assistance to support Ukraine.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy allows for a South Korean scenario as a possible end to the war unleashed by Russia against Ukraine. He stated this in an interview with the newspaper Le Point. As is known, after the end of the Korean War, not a single peace treaty was signed. At the same time, South Korea was able to prosper. According to the head of state, such a scenario is also possible in Ukraine, but there is a nuance. Zelenskyy reminded that South Korea has a reliable ally, the United States of America. However, South Koreans still face risks.
Their economy is thriving, and they are under the protection of the alliance. But as long as North Korea remains as it is, as long as the nature of its leadership stays the same, South Korea will not be completely safe.
The head of state noted that South Korea is also reliably protected by air defense systems. However, an exact copy of the South Korean model would not suit Ukraine from a security standpoint.
The population of North Korea is just over 20 million people, while Russia has more than 140 million. It is impossible to compare the scale of these threats. The threats from Russia are 5, 6, or even 10 times greater.
Earlier, former NATO Supreme Commander James Stavridis spoke about ending the war in Ukraine according to the Korean scenario. Meanwhile, Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the president's office, believes that freezing hostilities along the front line could be one of the scenarios for ending the war. According to him, the final decision will be made by the president. Podolyak noted that consultations are underway at the level of the head of state and European leaders, and that there is also a dialogue with American partners. It should be noted that on September 4th, a summit of the leaders of the coalition of the Resolute will take place in Paris, where security guarantees for Ukraine will be discussed. After the meeting, a phone conversation between the leaders and US President Donald Trump is scheduled. French President Emmanuel Macron stated that work on security guarantees for Ukraine has been completed. The French leader made this statement during a meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy at the Élysée Palace. According to him, the security guarantees are now ready for political approval. It is known that the guarantees include support for the defense forces, the deployment of troops to ensure peace in Ukraine, and a commitment of support from the United States. In turn, Volodymyr Zelenskyy welcomed the progress, emphasizing that the guarantees are real, tangible support for Ukraine. Meanwhile, The Telegraph reports that freezing the war in Ukraine is currently the best scenario. Political analyst Mark Brolin believes a temporary cessation of hostilities without the legal recognition of lost territories could give Ukraine time to strengthen its defense and economy. The expert notes, for this scenario to work in the best possible way, Ukraine must receive not only a set of security guarantees, but also sanction mechanisms in response to any serious violation by Russia. At the same time, US President Donald Trump stated, the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and the Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelenskyy are not yet ready for a personal meeting, but something has to happen. In an interview with CBC News, He noted that he has a realistic and optimistic stance on the negotiations and added that he is closely monitoring how the parties are successfully dealing with the challenges in the negotiation process. Trump also hinted that the United States of America is planning to do something to ensure that the meeting between the two leaders takes place. Tashkent's patience with Moscow has run out. In Uzbekistan, there are demands to find and punish the Russian man who called an Uzbek taxi driver a slave of the Russians. This concerns an incident that took place in Khimki, near Moscow. There, according to eyewitnesses, a local resident began to rudely insult the migrant driver because his car had temporarily blocked the entrance to a courtyard while waiting for a garbage truck to pass. A video of the conflict, in which the Russian man yells at the Uzbek and calls him a slave, has been posted online.
Don't open your mouth. You are a slave of the Russian. You found nothing for yourself in Uzbekistan.
It is noted that the taxi driver calmly asked the Russian man to stop the insults, after which he got into his car and drove away. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Uzbekistan has responded to this incident. The press secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Uzbekistan, Akror Burkanov, stated,
An investigation is being conducted into the incident, which caused widespread public outcry in August. In this regard, an official note was sent to the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs with the aim of identifying the person captured on video and taking legal action against him.
This is far from the first case of aggression against migrants in Russia. Uzbeks, Tajiks, and Azerbaijanis face discrimination and insults from Russians directed at them. Moreover, at the state level, there is a so-called hunt for migrants. Large-scale raids on foreign citizens are being carried out in various regions of Russia. It should be noted that because of these raids on migrants, Russia has already severely damaged its relations with Azerbaijan. In June, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Azerbaijan reported detentions and killings of Azerbaijani citizens by Russian law enforcement officers in Yekaterinburg. The ministry demanded that the Russian side punish those responsible.
China has responded to the statement by US President Donald Trump that Chinese leader Xi Jinping, Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, and North Korean ruler Kim Jong-un have conspired against the United States. Sky News reports this. As is known, Trump made this statement after the large-scale military parade that took place in Beijing on September 2nd. Russian and North Korean dictators were present at the event. The US president closely watched the historic military parade in China. His reaction to the events was sarcastic.
Please convey my sincerest congratulations to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un, who are conspiring against the United States of America.
In response, the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that their country never targets any third party when developing diplomatic relations with other countries. The Kremlin responded to US President Donald Trump's statement about an anti-American conspiracy. In particular, the Russian authorities expressed hope that the statements made by the head of the White House were ironic. Kremlin advisor Yuri Ushakov assured that supposedly the leaders of the Russian Federation, China, and North Korea were not plotting any conspiracy at the parade in Beijing.
No one was organizing any conspiracies, no one was scheming anything, there were no conspiracies. Moreover, no one even had such thoughts. None of these three leaders had any such thoughts.
Many global media outlets wrote that Xi Jinping's parade casts a shadow on the authority of both Trump himself and the United States as a whole. According to journalists, this event is intended to demonstrate China's leading role in the current world order. The New York Times wrote that Xi Jinping sent an important message to the West through the military parade. This is the largest display of power and diplomatic influence in recent years. The parade was overseen by the PRC leader Xi Jinping, who was accompanied by about 20 other leaders. It was a rare gathering of autocrats who positioned themselves in opposition to the US-led world order. Gazprom's and dictator Vladimir Putin's announcement about an agreement with China on the construction of the Power of Siberia-2 gas pipeline has not been confirmed by Beijing, according to the Washington Post. Gazprom head Alexei Miller earlier announced the signing of a legally binding memorandum to increase gas supplies to 106 billion cubic meters per year. Putin repeated these words, emphasizing that the parties had finally reached a consensus. However, the Chinese authorities and the China National Petroleum Corporation did not comment on the memorandum. And in the communique following Putin's visit to China, there was only mention of cooperation in infrastructure and energy, without reference to the project. Alexander Gabuev, director of the Carnegie Russia Eurasia Center, commented on the Russian side's statement to the Financial Times.
A legally binding memorandum without a price and deadlines is not a final agreement.
According to Gabuev, the only real deal was the decision to increase the flow through the existing Power of Siberia-1 route. Whereas regarding Power of Siberia-2, China merely indicated its interest in the project and agreed to the route through Mongolia. But the price and terms still need to be discussed. Vadim Denisenko, head of the analytical center Delovaya Stolitsa, commented on the situation with the Power of Siberia-2 project.
The Chinese are a country that easily signs memorandums. That is, they find it very difficult to sign contracts, but very easy to sign memorandums. In other words, this is their diplomatic tradition. And because of it, there is often a lot of confusion.
Denisenko clarified that, in his opinion, with the parade in China that took place in early September, Xi Jinping declared that the PRC is the second pole of the world.
We are starting to shape not only our own agenda, but also beginning to shape the global agenda.
China has begun moving toward changing the world order in the areas of the economy and global security, said Vadim Denisenko. On September 3rd, a large-scale military parade was held in Beijing. Present at the event were the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, the leader of the PRC, Kim Jong-un, and leaders of other countries. The military parade in China was the first occasion where Putin, Kim, and the representative of the PRC, Xi Jinping, appeared together in public.